And welcome everybody to episode 27 of the Inferno Suns podcast for Believe Sports, Believe Network, based in LA. But we are based in Phoenix for this podcast, and we got a lot to talk about. Monty Williams, let's get right to it. Wow. To be fired after getting Coach of the Year last year, it's not an uncommon thing in the new NBA, especially for the past 12 years. George Karl was the first to ever have that happen. I believe it was the year 2010 or 2011 when that happened. What year was that, Ced?
Yeah, I think it was 2010.
Yeah. So shout out to my co-host, Cedric Ceballos, legendary Suns player and former Laker, and Dr. Patrick Patil, a.k.a. super fan, Mr. Orange of the Suns faithful. And congratulations to graduating from Grand Canyon University officially last week with your PhD.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And so I've seen you on the road in Denver a couple times as well as in Los Angeles. It was a fun ride while it lasted. It was really short. But the thing is that I expected it to be short against the Denver Nuggets, to be honest. They were the better team. They were the better team all year. They had the number one seed in the Western Conference for over 100 days this past regular season, and they were basically outmatching the Suns from the jump. They have a two-time MVP and runner-up for that award in Nikola Jokic this year, and he just outplayed DeAndre. And the list goes on. The Ishbia trade, Monty Williams getting fired on Saturday, May 13th. And that actually is not far from the hire date of when he was brought on to the Suns as head coach 4 years ago, May of 2019. So a lot to unpack here. Let's start with you, Ced. What do you think about this firing?
Well, I kind of called it when Budenholzer got fired. I mean, the fact that he just won a championship and for a man to win the championship and 2 years later. And I thought that, the Milwaukee Bucks fell apart with injuries. They didn't fall apart because they didn't have the knowledge or the personnel or fact, the desire to play. So I kind of called this. If they were going to get eliminated any round other than the finals or the Western Conference finals, that his job would be in jeopardy. And that's mostly, like you said before, this is the league now, especially with the coaches. They sign 5-year deals. They have 4 to really, prove. But on that 4th year, it doesn't matter what you do in that 1st or 2nd year. It's really that 4th year that, ownership or management makes that evaluation on, and do they extend you to a big contract or were you doing, in their eyes, mediocre work where they can start over again with somebody else with a new contract. And, it's the unfortunate thing. It's fortunate that the salaries of the coaches are where they are, but it's unfortunate that 3rd or 4th year is really where you're credited or evaluated on your coaching skills.
Sure. Patrick, what's your take on Monty Williams getting ousted?
Yeah, similar to Ced, this league is very much what have you done for me lately? And so everyone will point back to, everything Monty has done, the turnaround. No one will discount or debate that, I don't think. So there's a lot of emotion involved, reaction across, media, other coaches, Doc Rivers talked about it today. And then obviously fan base and media. And at the end of the day, you have a new owner as well. And so that's a whole nother piece that you layer in here on top of, again, exiting 2nd round and the way you exited at home. All those pieces put together, I said it as well that, I no matter what, I appreciate and love Monty as a person and a man. But from a business perspective, I anticipated this happening as well. And so to Ced's point, from a financial perspective, Monty will be, very well off. And if he wants to coach again, I'm sure he'll land a gig heading right into next season as well. And so from the Phoenix perspective, and obviously with Matt Ishbia taking over as well, I didn't anticipate any less, especially with not just the last game, but you look at so many games. The Suns really weren't there was no blowout wins. The one game, where there was an opportunity to do that, that lead was diminished, and every game was either a nail biter or the Suns were really beaten very well and handedly. And so when you look at that and what we have on the floor and adjustments and things that are within control, whether it's on Monty fully or not, change is sometimes what people look to. And specifically, again, having a new owner, which very similar to Milwaukee, you're going to make those changes and bring in, fresh blood or somebody that is quote unquote yours that you have interviewed or have an input on, especially when you make some major moves like Matt Ishbia did. So not surprised, wish Monty nothing but the best. Again, what he's done for this franchise, turning it back around again, will always be part of the Suns' history and success. And he's a key part of making that happen.
Right. Well, I will say that shout out to all the mothers out there on Mother's Day, but I will speak to my father's mantra from years ago when he taught me about the NBA and how you can't fire the players, so you got to fire the coach. That's what he used to always tell me back in the 90s, and how the coaches always get the blame in the league, no matter what the players do wrong. And so the players didn't do anything wrong, but let's consider where the Suns were at entering this season. The way that the Suns were made up, it was the fourth oldest team in the league entering this season. Then they had the Jay Crowder situation. They had the Ayton situation. They brought him back and let the market, and literally, actually Indiana, create the market value for Ayton, not the Suns themselves, after what happened with Game 7's debacle last year at home against the Mavericks and Ayton's fallout with Monty. Then the youth is really from Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson. Their draft picks from 2018 and 19, respectively. So they gave away two of their role players to get older and get older players like Terrence Ross, who has been in the league for, 8 years, 12 years. I mean, that's a big gap, but he's been in the league a very long time, at least 10 years, right? So he's an aged, young, older player, 31 years old. And they got Kevin Durant, who's 34 years old. And he's had injuries, lower leg injuries for the past 4 years, which I know why Monty said, I like our team the way it is. And for what price should we get Kevin Durant? He did not want the trade. James Jones did not want the trade to get Kevin Durant until Ishbia came in. And then they basically had to pretty much follow the black hand, if you will, with Matt Ishbia as the new owner to get this deal done. So it was a win now mentality, mortgaging the future, as Ishbia is the nation's leading mortgage lender with the United Wholesale Mortgages, right? And so that just showed how he was banking on one guy giving up literally everything, the farm, just to get really one guy, because they threw TJ Warren in the deal, but they really didn't play him in the regular season after they got him, and then maybe played him towards the tail end of the playoffs. And so they got TJ Warren back, and from 4 years ago when he was here. And then the thing is that they got Kevin Durant while he was injured. He was coming off a knee injury, hadn't played since January 8th, played his first game on March 1st. And then 3 games later, he gets injured again, for the first home game, and he misses basically 3 weeks. And so they didn't have time to gel with him. And then Chris Paul gets injured, right? And so they sit him, and then he gets injured in the playoffs, and they're already old with him in running the offense. They basically had to craft the offense around playing him off the ball to manage his age and the fact that he was slowing down the offense, and to basically much manage his minutes so they don't wear him down. So they're trying to do all these things after siphoning Kevin Durant and giving away their future of 5 draft picks and 3 of their best role players after they didn't handle the Jay Crowder situation, in the best way, and trying to bring him back. And they gave away their 2 best role players, one the best on-ball defender in Mikal Bridges and the best spot-up shooter, arguably in the league, in Cam Johnson. It was also a great rebounder. And you got this basically for one guy that you're trying to get him to do everything, is handling the ball, shooting on, pretty much off the dribble and ISOs and doing everything to make him a decoy, and players just couldn't get shots up. So Ishbia coming in and then expecting Monty to figure this all out was too much pressure. So I'm just thinking to myself, this new NBA where you have to have it all now is so much against the old NBA, in which players and coaches pretty much stayed for 5, 6, 7 years on end. And gone are the days of the Doug Moes, the Frank Ladens, and the Jerry Sloans. And there's only one guy who's really still around who can have a tanking season, and that's Greg Popovich. And I think that if Greg Popovich retires, Monty will likely end up back in San Antonio as a head coach there because he lives there during the off season, or he could be in Philadelphia because I think Doc Rivers is going to get fired after dropping Game 7 after having a 3-2 lead, or is a 3-1 lead in that Philadelphia Celtics series. It was a 3-1 lead, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that likely Monty could end up going back to Philadelphia and being a head coach after coming to Phoenix and being an assistant in Philadelphia. So Doc Rivers is probably end up going to be a candidate for the Suns job, and they could end up being a swap. Now, who do you think would be the best coaching candidates to come to Phoenix and fulfill what Monty Williams tried to do and then some? Said, you'll go first, please.
Well, let's start on the business side. Business side, Thunder Dan is sitting over there, and that would definitely boost up morale, boost up ticket sales, boost up advertising, money when Thunder Dan's presence is there. And also two-time MVP Steve Nash, after leaving Brooklyn, had his first tender at the head coaching job. So for business-wise, if Matt is looking for sort of big ticket, those are two big ticket items that can come along. As far as the sequence of players that are on the roster now, I'm gonna throw Steve Kerr's name in the mix, even though they hadn't been brought up for him, being fired or him wanting to move on. But I just think his team is built for him. I think this team is also built for the person that he took over, Mark Jackson. He just got an interview with the Bucks, but I think Phoenix is a team that needs what he did to Golden State, and then Steve Kerr took over, a guy that will have an ear for the players, will have the trust. Both of them, I think Steve and Mark would have the trust of the players, and being former players will be a lot in the limelight, that they'll come to him a little bit more. I don't know if I wasn't in the locker room. I'm not really sure the conversations that they had with Monty, but obviously we all know that he couldn't get Ayton to get along on the same train as everybody else. No pun intended. But that's going to be a key opponent, and whether and then look at the personnel. James has got to figure out, do we keep the big fella? And if we do keep the big fella, how do we manage his ego and keep him happy and make things peaceful for him so he can go back to playing, the number 1 pick basketball as he's predicted to be, and also the big contract that he's, proven himself to have. So it's some other players. I mean, Byron Scott is out there. I talked to Byron Scott last summer, and he said he wouldn't mind coaching again. He's an Arizona State guy, so that could be another, little, ticket wise, after moving from television pay-per-view, so to speak, sports, free sports again. These are all additives that he's going to have to lay on the table. I'm talking about the owner, Ishbia, and try to see what he's going to do, Patrick, because it's a lot of things up in the air, and I don't know at this point if it has anything to do with X's and O's.
Yeah, I can't even begin to think about what Matt Ishbia wants to do. There's plenty of candidates out there, but it seems to me he has kind of his mind already made up, if you will, and either those are candidates, and there's been some rumors already with current, sitting coaches, that rumors are out there like Ty Lue and wanting to lure him away, whether that's accurate or not, just being reported. But from what his actions have already indicated, like coming in and right before the trade deadline, just kind of stepping over and saying, no, this is what we're going to do as the owner, and we're making this trade and sending this guy, to me is very interesting on what that's done to James Jones, just his image across the league, as president and GM. And so I think, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does, the dynamic as well with Ayton. Obviously, I think it's June 23rd or so before he can even be talked about, moving from here. Culture is where it has to start. So DA either needs to get the heck on board, or he needs to get out of here because or a coach needs to come in that's going to really be able to, knock him into shape, and he's going to have consequences that follow along with it. You have some crazy stuff going around the league. What happened with John Moran again today? And Dana, I know we spoke about that offline all day. So there's so much going on, and I think Matt Ishbia has shown he will act on whether that's emotion or feeling or impulse or whatever that is. So to me, I don't even know. It could be a candidate none of us have even named. Isaiah Thomas is always around. What role does he want within an organization? Because I've seen him at so many games already. Everyone knows how big he is in Matt Ishbia's book. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see how things start to shake out. So I have absolutely no idea where this will land from a coaching perspective. How quick is Ishbia going to move to get this person in? And is James Jones safe in his role? Or do they put him back to just GM and bring in someone else to lead him from a president, perspective? I think there's a whole lot still that we're going to see shake out, here in the next few weeks and months.
Patrick, let me add this before you jump back in, Dana. Being comfortable too with Matt. When you brought up Isaiah, just being comfortable. And I know he just retired, but for Izzo to be at the games was really shocking to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he said he retired because it's time and health wise and this, that, and that, I mean, it just seems like and I know if I, had came across an opportunity of a team and I had a coach that took me to a national championship and gave me an opportunity, and this is an opportunity to sign him for a 5-year deal to go off into the Windworth with $20-30 million. I would return that favor for my coach. I know I would,
Yeah. That's a great
program
point.
or what's going on. I will return that favor. And if he does great, that's perfect. But if he doesn't, it was, here you go, coach. I appreciate you, giving me an opportunity to win the national champion and be a part of your team because it brought me to this point.
Can we agree that Matt Ishbia is really trying to bring Michigan to Phoenix?
The whole squad, man.
I mean, he's really just think about the recent signing or hiring of Josh Bartlestein, and how he's a former exec in the Pistons organization, and bringing him on as a CEO to replace Jason Rowley, as the president, right, and CEO. So that right there tells me that definitely Michigan connections are at play here. And with Isaiah always at the games, even the road games, in the playoffs, right? And the Clippers, and I saw him in Denver. And I like Isaiah. Zeke's a good dude, really cool. Good, he always says what's up to me. Loved his Mary Thomas story on NBC back in the day, about his mother. And, that's what got me into basketball. It's always cool to see him. But I'm wondering if, and I hate to throw this rumor out, but did he advise Ishbia to fire Monty Williams? Because Isaiah is a guy that is on NBA TV all the time. He can watch the games from his house. He watched the games from NBA TV in the Techwood campus over there in Atlanta, and I know that campus because I used to live right down the street from there with my wife in Atlantic Station. So he can watch all the games from there, but he has to be in Phoenix for every game. So it means that he's here for a reason. It doesn't mean that he's just, buddy and watching the game with, chewing on a pretzel with Ishbia, as something as like a perk. He can go to any game he wants to. He's Isaiah Thomas. He's a Hall of Famer, right?
So, yeah, Dana, remember it was the first day that Matt Ishbia was at his press conference, and news had broke, from media that he was already bringing Isaiah Thomas on board. And
yeah, he was questioned on it, and I covered that press conference.
Yeah. And so, he answered it very politically, where he is not coming in right now. There's a role for anybody. Will you rule him out? So it was very, very clear that he was not saying no,
right.
And he was not saying yes at the time. So I would be surprised if we start next season and Isaiah Thomas does not have some type of a capacity role within this organization. But back to the head coaching position, who knows? And again, with the president, and again with James Jones as president and GM, what is all of that going to look like? But right now, you can see he has very little control. If the reports are accurate that you saw from Woj again today, during the pregame of
I saw it.
Game 7, where he said, he changed his article from last night.
I saw that
but his
tweet
words
from you
today were
that he updated the article, right?
Yeah, exactly. The words were the same exact thing where Ishbia is running the show, and Monty got the call from James Jones, probably because of their relationship, I would hope. But, of course, James Jones had to say what he said in the press release. I mean, I think we all know that.
Yeah, because the hierarchical structure and how it goes, and that the GM has to fire the
Yep.
coach, not the owner firing the coach. And Ishbia was the one who spearheaded this Durant trade,
Yep.
which, frankly, Monty didn't want that trade. He didn't want it. He wanted the team to be intact the way it was, even though it was basically the team had fallen short. But he liked the way the team had grown together, and he grew that group and became a championship contender and won 64 games last year, and then gut them. It's like, and he literally said, at what price? And so that showed that Monty pretty much and James Jones did not have the final decision, final call on blocking that Durant trade that they had been for months. And Durant probably all through the summer until Durant probably said it's finally, and it said that Nash basically kissed and made up until Nash got fired, and then Kyrie Irving left. So that tells me that there's obviously work at play with, and also you want to include Willie Green, who also is a Detroit native, and that's part of the possible connection of bringing Willie Green back. If he's a coaching candidate, if he wants to possibly interview for the job to come back here as a former assistant under Monty Williams and see if that can work for what he's done in New Orleans to be back here. Now, I don't agree with that, but I've seen his name swirled around a little bit too, as well as Ty Lue and all the other coaches that Seth has talked about. So that makes me think if Monty Williams is out the door, and DeAndre Ayton is out the door. And I think he has a part of a restricted free agent clause where he can, or part of his clause, he can veto a trade for a year up to that, right?
Yeah, that's up until the June 23rd. Then he won't
Okay.
be able to. Yeah, so I'm sure they wait till then. But
Right.
Seth, what do you and Dana said first? What do you think about James Jones? One, is he safe? Two, does his role get diminished? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had thought that that GM role was perfect for him. I thought that when they moved him up, that was very very huge. And then that's when you see a lot of internal problems that's going on. So and let me throw this out there because I'm not too sure if he's comfortable handing out fines. But Joe Dumars did an excellent job running the Detroit Pistons. One of the Bad Boys 2 era with the championship as well. Put a couple of Hall of Famers out there, and I think that may be another Detroit, Michigan connection that may be going on. Not really too sure about that, but that's probably maybe far fetched. But for a while he's been quiet, and then Draymond woke him up with that fine, and he had some other, John Morant woke him up with that fine and stuff that he was doing.
Dylan Brooks, of course, not talking to the media for the 25K.
So then, I don't know if really.
And Jokic.
I haven't spoken to Joe, and but I would think if he had an opportunity, he'd take full advantage of it because he still has a lot of basketball knowledge. But in order and speaking with Aiden, it's funny because when I come to the games, I try to come a couple hours early and just sit around and just listen and just try to pay attention. And it just seemed like every executive was coming to me asking me, how do we get the big fella going? How do we get the big fella going? I said, well, I got some ideas, but I need to be on staff to get to give you these answers. But it just seems like his feelings are hurt to me. And
Aiden definitely looked like not just his rib, but his feelings were hurt in that final media availability on Friday. He looked like he was about to cry. I have to say, he just looked very emotional talking, and it looked like he felt as if his days were numbered in Phoenix, and he wants to be here, and his head was down. He just looked very despondent, and I almost felt bad for him. I just felt that he just is a kid that just wants to be where he was raised in Phoenix by way of the Bahamas, and his mother and family's based here, and what reason should he leave? And he's the #1 overall pick and for the Suns' first ever, and that's where he wants to retire here. But he knows that the fan base and everybody who questioned his motive, like I questioned him, like what he thought about that, and he said, "I'm dominating, man. I don't know what that is." And I'm like, he didn't really respond well with his performance since that statement, and so that showed that. I mean, of course, Jokic is way more talented than Ayton. and just exposed him. And so it just, with a fully healthy Nuggets squad, Suns were not going to beat them. I knew that. And so the blame, even what Stephen A. Smith said today, Sunday, that he got, Monty Williams fired, which I think is ridiculous. There's more to the silver lining than that. I believe that Ayton, he just knows that the pressure is on to take the brunt of what has happened with Phoenix's collapse, and that he didn't basically man up and take that game 6 like a Willis Reed and come out there and try to save the franchise from the brink of elimination. And I mean, I saw that shot to the rib he took, man, from Bruce Brown. I mean, you get an elbow on to the rib or a knee to the rib like he took. I mean, I'm not playing game 6 too, man. I get it. So I felt bad for him. So in that sense, with Ayton possibly out of here, what about Chris Paul? Here we are again talking about this as we did a couple episodes ago. Now that I remember what you said about if they lose in the second round or the way that they lose, he could be out of here. How do you feel about that now?
Yeah, I still feel that way. They had to finish this thing all the way off for him to stay. Even if they went to the finals and lost again in the finals, I think that it was still going to be a situation where he's going to be out of here, even with the acquisition of Kevin Durant. And I think both parties were going to be fine with that. I think he wants to go team up with a super team. Lakers, maybe, you know, who knows?
Finally. Yeah,
We'll see. I mean, he's been trying to milk that for years, or a possibility to go back to the Clippers. But I think, he still has his homes there. His kids still go to school there.
Right.
And it just seems like that's fitting, and the biggest thing, and I thought, a lot of people are really, they can go ahead and point their finger at Ayton. But I think the biggest punch in the mouth was, and everybody gets on this guy all the time, but Cam. When Cam got hurt, and then Chris got hurt, that was the kicker, because Cam needed that time when Chris was down to become a lead point guard, and he was down too. So I think they might have had a chance against Denver if you get 40-40 from the two big dogs, and you really like the way Cam showed up in the last game. If he had more time to mature and get to that point, I still think it's different when you're coming off the bench, OKC, and you're playing and you're goofing around, you're Russell's dance partner, and you come in and make the crowd woo woo woo. But at some point, it was the changing of the guard. Like, look, Chris Paul will finish this game, but you have to be Chris Paul with activity, with defense, with shots, with playmaking, with controlling the team for 3 quarters. And I still thought that his mentality and his mind, he thought he was a specialist, an energy guy. He has passed that in my eyes, but I don't think his confidence had put him to a point. And maybe, I don't know if Monty had these conversations with him, because I'm not in that locker room, but I just thought that he had an opportunity to really be the dominant point guard for 3 quarters, and then that'll keep Chris healthy enough to finish off, his mid-range game, his pick and roll game in the fourth quarter when they needed him.
Absolutely. I believe that Chris Paul couldn't stay healthy, and I never agreed with putting Campaign on the bench when Chris Paul came back in December against the Celtics. I thought Campaign should have stayed in rhythm, and he was averaging 13 points between that 14 game stretch where Chris was out, and also 6 rebounds. Campaign was in his rhythm. He was playing well. And then they put him on the bench, and then he got injured, and then he was out for basically 2-3 months with a foot injury. And then he had lower back soreness because he lost his rhythm. And I agree with you, man. And now with that game, basically, as the 31 points, the season ending losses that he had, I believe that that's an audition for him to go somewhere else to create some value in a trade package to get somebody. And that's where I wonder. And I know, Patrick, that Ja Morant is not on the trade table as of yet. But if Matt Ishbia really, really wants to do something with having Ja Morant here for games and jersey sales, Chris Paul and Campaign and someone else might be a draft pick to get Ja Morant out of Memphis, because I don't think that he'll be in Memphis anymore after what's happened with that new video of him on IG Live with the gun. Patrick, I'll let you close it out, and then we got to go to end this whole episode 27.
No, thank you, Dana. No, thank you. We have enough drama going on in the Valley now with all the action going on.
Let's get weird, man. Let's get weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a circus, that will just contribute to it with another crazy piece. No, so truly though, the NBA is going to have to rule on that. I don't think any team, as I told you earlier, is going to act on that until a decision is made from the NBA and how they're handling him. Again, with Matt Ishbia and the actions he's already taken, I'm not ruling anything out. But if I'm the owner, that's not a piece I'm taking a risk with right now. I mean, this is multiple times. He understood. He said the severity of it, apologize, etc. And then to have it happen again so soon after that, there's concerns there about character and how is that going to impact the culture here. And so yes, he's talented, but to me, it's not at that cost. Said.
Let me ask you this. I mean, since we're getting crazy out here, Dana got the crazy button out.
Yeah, he does.
How about Aiden for Kyrie Irving and Maxi Kleber? Now we have, Chris Paul moves on, and then obviously said Cam gets a good deal somewhere else, an opportunity for it to be have his own team. Now you got a real finisher that it seemed like that. I would love this if Monty stayed, because it didn't seem like that we had a lot of adjustments when we were just ISOing your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn. So if we go just your turn, why not get one of the best ball handlers in the world and finishers at the basket or 3-pointers in Kyrie Irving? And then when they could just take turns being your turn, your turn. You have a filler, obviously in those other positions. And I love Kleber, the way he guards and he defends and he competes. He might not have the talent of all, but he will compete, and he doesn't mind sticking his nose in there. Sometimes it ends up getting dunked on, but most of the times it's blocks, and he can also stretch that defense and knock down shots, which they would need with a team like Kyrie, Booker, and Kevin Durant. They need two other guys that can really get out of the way, play great defense, and knock down shots.
Yes, please. That's definitely not Dana crazy button level. That is much more, I think, realistic and attainable for sure.
I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying that Matt Ishbia clearly showed from this firing of Monty Williams that he does not care about character and culture. He doesn't, because if he did, then Monty Williams wouldn't be fired as quickly as he was 2 days after their season-ending loss. And I know the whole new voice thing, and I agree with you, Patrick, on that. But I'm thinking that if Matt Ishbia just wants names and doesn't care about culture that's been created over the past 4 years with the success Monty Williams has had as the 4th all-time leader in Suns history among coaches for wins, and then to turn this franchise around from 10 years of basement dwelling and not having anybody here that wanted to come here, then having Chris Paul come here and bring them, lead them to the finals with Devin Booker, and then having Kevin Durant want to come here and saying it twice within a year, and then just having this turn into an attraction under what Monty did. There's no way that Matt Ishbia cares about character. So that's why I'm saying, that's probably why I could see that the illusion and lack of logic there is more of an emotional decision. And that's why I see like there's probably having Ja Morant in the ballpark to have names and so some superstar glitz of South Phoenix to have either Kyrie Irving come in or to have Ja Morant come in to replace Chris Paul, who's 38 and basically been injured. And It basically reminds me of Nash at the tail end of his career before he got traded to the Lakers for that 1 year in 2012 for that so-called super team that fizzled out quickly. So that's why I say that. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I just say that this is what I see with Matt Ishbia's decision-making within the past 24 hours.
Well, I'll say we do know one thing he doesn't care about, and that's money, because he said it. And obviously paying Monty Williams 23 to 28 million, the rumor is, to leave. Clearly he's going to make the decisions he thinks are best, regardless of money. And he made that comment directly regarding, the whole deal and the TV deal and, the money piece there. So it's going to be interesting, fellas. We got to buckle up because we're going to have a very exciting summer covering each and every move that is coming down from Matt Ishbia and the new look Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, and Matt Ishbia claimed at that press conference to introduce himself and his brother that he's a steward rather than owner. So he absolutely looks either as a steward by the end of the summer or in the next season, or stupid.
Yeah, one of the two. I don't know who he's stewarding though. I don't know who's in those conversations, but said,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's you, but it sure is not us.
Yeah,
Oh no, not me at all. I mean, they asked me about coming back, but that was just passing in the night. So
no doubt. Well, thank you everybody for listening into the channel. I'm sorry, for episode 27 of the Believe podcast, The Inferno, with my fellow co-hosts Cedric Ceballos and Patrick Patillo, Dr. Patrick Patillo, excuse me. I need to put that on top of your title, aka Mr. Orange, a super fan for the Suns, and myself, Dana Scott. Till next time, we'll see you later, and we'll let you know the updates on anything we hear in episode 28. Peace.